All right, everyone, New Hampshire fans, get mobilized because today is the fateful day. I encourage you all to go take a Dem ballot and vote for Pete Buttigieg. The reason why, because if you can edge Sanders out there, it would be absolutely hysterical. But I don't expect that to happen. It would require considerable amount of organization. If you're in New Hampshire or if you're nearby, you can consider doing that. But ultimately, the New Hampshire primary has been sort of Bernie Sanders' stopgap all along. Because of all four of the initial states, New Hampshire is right next to Vermont. There's a lot of similarity really in the way things are done. And we joke about, Vermonters and people from New Hampshire joke about each other and stuff, but really we're the twin states for a reason. There's really not that big a difference. We're separated by the Connecticut River and nobody cares. So New Hampshire's just a little more pro-gun and a little bit lower tax, and Vermont's got a little bit more of the touristy atmosphere and is landlocked, and more forested, and that's basically the only real difference. Anyway, Bernie Sanders, as far as I know, in recent polling, he's out ahead. It just depends on what margin he's out ahead by and who's in second place. Really, the fight, I think, is going to boil down to Warren versus Biden for third. If Elizabeth Warren gets bumped down to fourth place, stick a fork in it, she's done. Because she's never been the front runner and she'll have failed in 2 successive races without really the prospect of rising up as she goes forward. If Biden comes in fourth, he should drop out. If Joe Biden can't come in the top 3 in either Iowa or New Hampshire, if he flubs both of the first states, falls outside of the top 3, he doesn't really have a chance. He's going to suffer so much of a loss of support before South Carolina that he won't win there either. I wouldn't even be able to tell you who's going to fucking win South Carolina. I guess maybe Warren can hold on for that, hope that the racist vote congeals behind her because she's a Chardonnay grandma who looks like a plantation owner, but I don't think that that's really going to work. Joe Biden's even losing the sort of the core minority voting bloc. He's begun to have a reduction in that support too. My theory was always that Joe Biden would manage to hang on simply by placing well enough in Iowa to be able to go into New Hampshire, place well enough in New Hampshire, grab up South Carolina and Nevada, cementing his front-runner status. In the national polls, ironically, he's technically still the front-runner, despite the fact that he lost more than 5 points in the aggregate over a single two-day span. That being said, oddly enough, Bernie Sanders hasn't had a surge. If you look at the polling, Biden lost a huge amount of support, and it all seems to have gone to Buttigieg and Bloomberg. Buttigieg and Bloomberg, the 2 other people in the race who are more like Biden, which shows me that my initial expectation was correct. Bernie Sanders has a low ceiling. What's happening here is that most of the Democratic voters have rejected socialism. They don't like Bernie Sanders and or don't see him as viable, possibly due to his age and health problems. As a result, they won't congeal behind him. This means that what you're going to see probably at this point, if Biden doesn't pull this out of his ass, inexplicably comes in second in New Hampshire. Okay, well then we can talk. If Biden falters, because the front runner will basically be out of the running, he's probably not going to climb back up. What you'll have is Buttigieg and Bloomberg fighting it out in a 3-way battle with Bernie Sanders, with everyone else slowly dropping out, suffering, and having to endorse people. It's going to be a real funny race then, because again, what will have happened with the Dem ticket? It'll be 3 white males. 2 of which are geriatric, 1 of which is untested, has almost no experience, and isn't even middle-aged yet. 1 of which is a massive, massive fucking billionaire. 1 of them is a fanatic. And the 3rd is gay, which there are certain voting blocs within the Dem party that don't like that. Unfortunately, they tend to be far-left voting blocs usually, which could really hurt the Democrats in an election against Trump, who's perceived of as being religious. I mean, he's not, but he can play the Jesus card with the best of them. He sounds like Pat Robertson when he wants to, even though I highly doubt he gives a fuck. He's not religious. He might believe in a god. It's probably the dollar, but, be that as it may. Biden still has a shot. I'm not writing him off completely because he's still technically in first place in national. The problem is, losing 1 race might not sink him, but if he also comes in 4th place in New Hampshire, I don't know what redeeming facet am I supposed to give him on Super Tuesday. Sanders is also massively ahead in California, among other places. Sanders could end up actually winning this, but he's going to get to the convention probably with too few delegates to secure it, which means it's going to get messy regardless. I don't envy the Dem nominee, but I would expect Sanders to win New Hampshire. Yeah, I would expect that he's going to end up winning. Buttigieg looks like he's likely to get second place, but keep in mind, this is not a caucus, so last-minute swing voting is less of an issue. In a caucus, you have several hours before people mill about and talk about the candidates, and the candidate staff come and try to win them over, and stuff like that, and people are moving around, and so polling has a harder time with a caucus. If the polling is reasonably accurate, you would expect Bernie Sanders will win this, although it might be by an underwhelming amount. It depends on which set of polling I believe. It doesn't really matter, though. A win is a win in New Hampshire. Buttigieg probably comes in a fairly close second, and then it's a battle for third. Who remains viable? Is it going to be Elizabeth Warren, the wine grandma, or is it going to be demented Joe Biden? If Biden can come in third, a relatively decent third, he can hang on. He might win South Carolina still. That could help repair the damage from Iowa, because of course Iowa's caucus sucked anyway and nobody liked it. If he does well then in Nevada, on Super Tuesday he could cobble together enough delegates to still be well in the running. The problem is it would almost be easier to stop Bernie Sanders if Joe Biden were to leave the race right now, simply because the other alternatives are potentially stronger at this point. Buttigieg at least isn't demented. Michael Bloomberg is completely self-funded to the point where he can overrun any other candidate with his money. I'll be getting more into Bloomberg actually now in the next video because of a Juan Williams piece that he wrote, which I thought was hysterical. I guess the insinuation is it's Bloomberg's moment in the sun, the one he denied to Buttigieg, by the way. He is surging right now, right at the right time, right before Super Tuesday. That could be part of his goal since he's spent 100% of all the money he's spent on the Super Tuesday states thus far. Bloomberg's extremely long game, very odd strategy could pay off and make him potentially viable thereafter. I just don't think it's highly likely. Keep in mind, this is still a packed field. Why are all of the lower rung candidates like Deval Patrick and Tulsi Gabbard even still there? Anyone below Amy Klobuchar shouldn't even be in the running at the moment. Yang certainly shouldn't. He's, by the way, declined considerably. He was riding around where Klobuchar is. You're getting a close-up of the cat at the moment. Hopefully it won't show its ass. But Yang was right up around where Klobuchar was. Now he's declined. Now he's 1.5 points or so below her in the aggregate. It's basically, I mean, this race is getting weird, to tell the truth. This is a lot more difficult, though, to guess than 2016, where fundamentally you only had two people in the Democratic race. It was basically Hillary Clinton beating up the socialist. Well, Bernie Sanders probably has a similar ceiling. In fact, it might arguably be lower. I am seeing a considerably lower amount of fervor behind Sanders this time than in 2016. Could have something to do with the fact that he decided to endorse Hillary Clinton. We're going to fight the establishment. We fight them here and now in the trenches. Oh, by the way, vote for the establishment that took all your fucking money. That's Bernie Sanders. By the way, he'll do the same thing if you get in office. All you Bernie bros out there are being conned. I hate to tell you this. Bernie Sanders is a long-term con artist who simply didn't want to have a real job. That's basically what it boils down to. This is fairly well known in the New England region among people who are not ideological zealots. There are a lot of people who simply put up with Bernie because I'll tell you one thing about Vermonters and about most small-town America sort of voting blocks. They tend to just re-elect the same incumbent unless there's a major scandal. To his credit, Bernie Sanders doesn't dick his staff. He doesn't beat his wife, apparently. He doesn't do like crazy shit like that. He's just a fanatic, and he's just lazy. That's why do you think he's sponsored so few bills that have ever passed? That's the real reason why. That's about all. Peace out.